Okay, so let's go ahead and come over to Dogbone Lake, and yeah, as suspected, see if I can pick him up. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, there's no way I'll be able to pick this guy up, even knowing exactly where he is. So yeah, let me go ahead and do this preemptively. I'll go F10, Springfield, I've lost sight, and you can see on my F10 menu now I'm just down to the lost sight call, and then ready to depart the area, and I'll make that call after I've fired. So F1.
Springfield 1-1, infield 1-1. I've lost sight of you. What's your location? Okay, infield, try it now. I'm holding over Dogbone Lake at 20,000 feet and a left-hand turn.
Okay, that's a good ops check of that call as well, because I have different radio calls for that situation based on where the aircraft is actually at. Okay, there he is. Down below me, left-hand turn. I've got the target. This all requires a little bit of imagination, you know. It's just an MiG-15 following an F-86 around, basically, but that's about as close as I'm able to get without, you know, actually building a tow cable and, you know, submitting it to aerodynamics as a additional store. That would be kind of an extreme thing to do and way outside the scope of what I have in mind here. So, I mean, the options here were really to just have one aircraft out there and imagine that it's your tow aircraft, or to have an aircraft just sort of follow the tow aircraft around. And yeah, I like this option better. Let me go speed brakes out as I get set up on this one, and yeah, ideally it would just be one pass and off the target. Let me lead it. Okay, let me track. That's going to miss a little bit high and a little bit right. That's okay though. And I mean, that, if I were playing this realistically like they did in the 1954 competition, that would be it. That would be your one pass. Just 60, 70 rounds or so fired. Let me set up and make one more pass on this guy just for the sake of doing it. I could also at this point tell my flight to engage. I have it set up so that all the other aircraft will sort of play along with whatever the situation is. Let's go engage bandits.
Engage bandits.
I heard at least one of them call that they had one in sight. Okay, so 3 has it in sight. I know 4 called that. Yeah, 2 doesn't have it in sight. That's okay though. And neither does 4, but 3 does. That's okay though. Okay, so electrical cage button held. Let me just sort of lead this a little bit. Going a little bit too fast for this gun sight setting, but that's okay. Okay, caging button release. Now let me track. I might have winged him there. I kind of doubt it though. It's hard to do, surprisingly, unless you do this over and over and over. And
Contact Mary 147.
okay, I think 3. Yeah, I think 3 is engaging right now. Okay, so 3 has made his pass, and I have it set up so that
Passing waypoint 3 at 24,000.
my flight only has just a few rounds. Okay, so I'll call that good, and I'll go ahead and have my flight rejoin. I'll have a look in TACVIEW after the fact and see what happened and see why 2 and 4 didn't get the target in sight. They might have just been, well, they would have just been too far away. I'll see what happened there, and I'll go rejoin formation F7.
Flight, join up.
I heard Uzi and the Springfield call on station, so that's the next flight that's up. So I had this set up so that, okay, I'll go to the F10 menu. I'll do F1, Springfield 1-1, Info 1-1, ready to depart the area.
Springfield 1-1, infield 1-1. My flight is off the target, and we are ready to depart the area. Okay, infield flight. Check all armament switches are safe and depart the area to the southeast. And if you have the fuel, the ground party is on site at range 1 setting up. Just check in with Firebird on UHF channel 2 if you want to have a look around. And break, Springfield 2-1, Springfield 1-1, we're departing to the southeast. Yourself and Uzi flight are clear to move in.
Okay, so that radio call would have kicked off a few things. That's going to have basically a mirror image of what just happened with my flight and Springfield 1. Springfield 2 is going to come in, it's going to deploy the target, and then Uzi flight is going to come in and engage the target. Once Uzi flight is Winchester, then those flights just RTB directly. So at this point, I mean, I've done everything that I need to do. Everything after this is completely optional, but I did throw in there that I could on channel 2 UHF. Now I've switched over to channel 2 now. I can call Firebird, and that's another F10 menu option. So Firebird, info 11, request range entry.
Firebird, infield 11, flight of 4 F-86 with guns.
I'm just going to, like I said, I'm just holding southeast of Dogbone.
Infield 11, Firebird, range 1 is clear for another few minutes. We're straight down the valley south of Dogbone Lake if you want to come down and have a look around. I can give you an overview if you need it, or you can just look around on your own, your call. Just continue to monitor channel 2 and I'll give you a heads up when I need you to clear out. I expect Colt flight to arrive in about 10 minutes.
Okay, and since this is just an air-to-air sortie, and since this is would ideally be the first one to be flown, I have a range orientation set up that again is optional, and I can kick it off by going to the F10 menu and saying, okay, I'll take the orientation.
Firebird, infield 11, I'll take that orientation now. Okay, infield, the ground party will be manning the range tower throughout the competition. I'm marking our location with green smoke and popping off some green flare. Press your space bar when you have us in sight.
Okay, there we go. So we've got the range in sight right there. I've got the flare in view. I'll hit space.
The competition events will be flown using a standard range pattern starting from a holding location south of the tower on the other side of the highway. This is nothing new to you, but you'll find details on how to fly the patterns in your info packet. You'll fly a total of 4 air-to-ground sorties this week, 2 combining air-to-ground gunnery and low-level skip bombing, and then 2 more combining dive bombing and rocket delivery. Press space if you're still with me.
Okay, now these are going to be the fun ones. I can't wait to get in and actually fly. I've got the air-to-ground missions just sort of sketched out, but yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun when it comes to air-to-ground. I have the range set up down here. I have it set up using the default objects. I am sort of on the fence. I don't want to require anybody that wants to compete in a competition to install add-ons like the 476 range targets. So I'm trying, if I can, get this to look anywhere near being correct or reasonable for a range. I'm trying to hold off on any sort of add-ons being required, but I could if I needed to. So let me go ahead and press space.
The range targets you'll be using consist of 2 conventional bombing circles and 4 gun pits. I'm marking the 4 gun pits with red smoke now. These will be your targets for the 2 air-to-ground gunnery sorties. The containers you see between the pits and our location at the tower are the foul line. They're 800 feet from the pits and mark the closest point you're allowed to fire from. Press your space bar if you're still with me.
Okay, I've got the pits inside, I've got the foul line inside, I've got the tower inside still marked with green smoke. And I heard Colt flight get airborne. That was another flight that I have set up. I think they get airborne once I call in to the range ground party here, the Firebird, just to add some additional flavor. Okay, so I'm still with you. Let me press space.
I just placed orange smoke on the 2 bombing circles. These will be your targets for all 4 bombing and rocketry sorties. Containers are placed every 1,000 feet south of the targets to mark the run-in heading, and they can also be used to help estimate the slant range for rocket firing. A container is also placed 1,000 feet past the target to the north to give an aim-off point reference. Press space when you have all this in sight.
Okay, so I've got the targets in sight, marked with orange smoke. The containers I'm finding are a little bit harder to see than I would have liked. I'm going to try to find, well, I'll need to try to find something a little bit darker against the light background. I used the white containers to mark the aim-off point and the distance markers. But yeah, I'll have to find something different. I don't really like the way that this looks from this altitude. Okay, so I'll go ahead and press space.
We'll be briefed on all the rules before each air-to-ground sortie, but generally anything goes so long as you observe the minimum pull-out altitudes for dives. Those will be 1,000 feet for dive bombing and 800 feet for rockets. And remember that the ground elevation here is 3,040 feet, so plan accordingly. Now, skip bombing is going to have a minimum altitude of 35 feet, and be sure not to pass that 800-foot foul line for your gunnery passes. So that's about it for now. The range is yours until Colt flight arrives. Just monitor channel 2, and I'll give you a call when I need this airspace back.
Okay, gotcha. And I mentioned there the minimum elevations and the the foul line and all that, I guarantee, just based on the, no matter how many times that I emphasize that on the earlier competitions, nobody's going to observe that. But you can't say I'm not trying to get all the little rules across, and those are the exact rules that were done for the 1954 competition. And this is, in fact, as far as I can tell, I'm 99% sure this is the exact location of the 1954, exact location and exact layout of the range, just based on the documentation that I have. So, well, like it said, I have a few minutes until Colt Flight arrives, so let me go ahead and just practice some air to ground. That's sort of what I had envisioned here as a player doing at this point. So I've got still the gun pits in view, so let me go back to guns on my selector. Okay, I'm going to leave the gun sight cage, the throttle back to a more reasonable airspeed. I'm just going to do fixed sight air to ground gunnery. That's, you would not uncage. Or you could, you're just not going to get any kind of accuracy at all, because the pipper would be jumping around if you did uncage it. I'm coming in from a sort of a bad angle here. So 800 foot foul line, you get pretty darn close. Okay, so I just need to make sure that I stop firing before 800 feet. Cut it a little bit close that time. So, let's see here. Yeah, from this altitude, those white containers are perfect. It was just up at a higher altitude that I had a lot of trouble picking them out against that white or that lighter background. So I'll try to find something a little bit better on those. They're not really going to matter until it comes to the dive bombing, though. And even then, it won't really matter. I think if a person is practiced enough on dive bombing and rocketry delivery, air-to-ground type stuff, that those range markers on the ground matter, then at that point, well, they probably don't even need the range markers at that point. Okay, so let me just come back around, make one more gunnery pass. I'll do it on one of these closer pits.
Infield 1-1 Firebird. Colt Flight is on station south of the range across the highway at 12,000 feet. Go ahead and exit the area to the east. Now feel free to stick around and watch if you have the fuel. Just maintain at least 1 mile separation from the range targets for me. You can contact Nellis Tower on channel 3 when you're ready to RTV.
Okay, sounds good. I definitely cut a little bit close on that 800 feet that time. And I was just placing the pipper short of the target and trying to let it naturally walk on up. And it always comes down to this whenever I'm doing a tutorial or doing one of the test flight series, just going for techniques. It always comes down to trim for air-to-ground, gunnery, rocketry, bombing. Trim messes up more good passes than anything else.
Firebird, the range is yours. Altimeter 2992, cleared hot.
Okay, so there's Colt. Okay, Colt Flight. They should be holding out here, other side of the road. And at that point, I have it set up so that if I'm still in the area, it waits until I'm about 1.5 miles from the range targets before it clears Colt Flight in. And at least on the runs that I made so far, just using the AI and, you know, not flying it manually, the AI actually does a pretty darn good job on these. So I'll come around, I'll just sort of watch as I see the F-86s down here. I'll just sort of watch and see how this looks from the cockpit up here.
Colt 1, pushing from waypoint 3 at 8,000.
Okay, there we go. And as far as timing on that, I could probably make Colt hold a little bit closer so that if a person, like I want to right here, wanted to stick around and watch Colt Flight go after these targets, they have bombs and rockets.
Passing waypoint 4 at 8,000.
A person could do so. Okay, passing waypoint 4, and that's where it sort of kicks into the AI to go after the ground targets. So I should move this a little bit closer to make this happen a little bit quicker.
Colt 1, in from the southwest, engaging armor at ball 320 440.
Okay, there he is. I have one of them in sight. Probably Colt 1 right there. Okay, I think he just dropped. There we go, good hit on that first target. Now I have it set up so that they're going to drop, they're basically doing the first air-to-ground sortie that the player will fly. 2 dive bombing passes on a target, and then 4 passes with a single rocket on targets. Okay, so there's another hit from one of the other flight members. I also have it set up so that they're going to fly sort of a racetrack pattern. They actually do a pretty good job of doing that. Okay, so I'm going to call that good. I'll look at it in TACVIEW again afterwards. Yeah, that's another bombing pass. They're going after, that's probably Colt 3 and 4 going after the target now. Okay, so I'll call this phase good. Now, let me just check. Okay, as of right now, I have no more F-10 options, so I've just got ATC. They're on channel 3. And I also have optionally, and let me see.
Engaging armor at bullseye 320
But I do have, and I'll have to make this a little bit more clear when it comes to radio communications pointing me in this direction. But I think I mentioned it during the audio briefing that we got at the beginning. But I do have areas set up that you can just fly out to, and it's sort of like normal Nellis sorties just up, so that you can just come up here and either jump those aircraft or be jumped by those aircraft. And I have 2 areas set up. Oh yeah, I know what I need to do. I need to call on channel 5 Dark Star, who I have set up. It's actually an AWACS E2 aircraft, but I have this set up so that it's just sort of simulating a GCI controller on the ground.